So before we get too far into the rabbit hole, I am going to put up a disclaimer. I have every intention of covering the Canada thing again this morning. This was going to actually be the Sunday morning random meme stream, but I ran across some information that I felt any viewer of my channel should probably know, given the late night stream that I gave last night. So, I, I need to clarify something. Canadians, actual Canadians. I'm not talking about your migrants that you take in from whatever Terry country, wherever. I mean real Canadian people. I actually don't have a problem with your people. I have a problem with your government. Okay. Number one. Number two. This applies to both Canada and Mexico, and we'll dig into this. Mexico exports to U.S. as a percentage of GDP 35%. So effectively, what that means is that us purchasing from Mexico makes up 35% of their GDP. Canada exports to Mexico, same thing, different number, 22%. Now, the amount that they contribute to our GDP is 1.5 and 1.2 respectively. Realistically speaking, when it comes to the tariff situation, I hate to burst everyone's bubble here. Everyone likes to sit here and say, "Go Canada, go Mexico." Realistically speaking, it'll have a negligible effect on the United States. Sorry, truth is truth. It just will. Okay, and I went through this whole list, and I had to kind of bring up some of these points. Okay, the natural resources argument is kind of moot. The United States has been a net exporter of natural gas since 2017. Canadian imports make up less than 10% of total U.S. natural gas consumption. I'm not going to say that it's an irrelevant point. I think that's just him trying to grandstand a little bit. Um, so, you know, I just figured that that would be a good point to kind of raise here. A lot of people are kind of on this thread are kind of dogging on Canada like directly. um, what about your lights? In 2023, the U.S. imported approximately 33 terawatts. Oh, those are baby numbers. Um, which is about 85% of the country's total electricity imports. Yes, but compare that to the amount of electricity that we actually actively use in the US, that's like less than a percent. That's not like bragging about us being electrically like superior. That's actually a bad thing. We use way too much of the stuff. Um Bro, the US is electricity independent. Canadian imports make up 1% of the total US electricity consumption. 1%. So, I don't know what the purpose of this. Please, give me a friggin' break. Bro, US isn't even on that chart. There are more little bits and pieces here. Um, and I mean I could, but I just kind of figured I should shed a little bit of light on some of the conversation yesterday. Also, I did a little bit more research on this topic, and I will bring it up on screen. On screen, I'm misspelling a word. Nope, it's one R, not two. what you actually want is, you know what? We'll have Grok do it if I can access Grok. Dude, learn how to spell this morning. Knew I should have had that coffee. Mm-hmm. I actually wanted prior to. I have two mice. Okay, here we go. I should point out that we like to sit here and whine and complain about tariffs between U.S. and Canada. Uh, there were already tariffs between U.S. and Canada, 25%. From what I'm reading here, is kind of amateur numbers. Um, I mean, really, you're gonna have to pay more for a car. You're gonna have to pay more for dairy, like dairy from Canada. Okay, well, number one, when it comes to vehicles and food, we should be making that stuff here. Okay, and I had this discussion last night on stream with one of my chatters who marvelous dude brought up some really good points and we discussed them at length last night. um, the reality is while international trade is fine, reliance on international trade is not. It's something that shows that there's a problem somewhere that needs to be addressed. But yes, so we've got the U.S. Mexico Canada trade agreement from 2020, which replaced NAFTA. According to this agreement, there were specific rules of origin for automobiles and auto parts requiring 75% regional value content for vehicles that qualify for duty free treatment up to 62.5% under NAFTA. This was intended to incentivize more production in the U.S. Yes, and it's one of the policies that never got undone. U.S. Canada on dairy. Canada maintained its supply management system for dairy, poultry, and eggs, which meant the U.S. dairy products still face some import restrictions and tariffs. The USMCA opened up some access to the dairy market for U.S. producers. So effectively, it was our stuff going to them. Um, the reality is, all right. So here's the problem with all these tariffs that were listed beforehand. Number one, we as a country have needed to make our own stuff since like the 80s, but we've refused to for, I'm guessing, some sort of tactical reason. Um, and there are. All right, so it's still taking from the. Um, yeah, but they still existed. So adding 25% probably is not going to be a huge friggin' deal. And I'm going to say that. Um, Now, here's what is a huge deal. And Grok is going. I'm going to react to this as Grok pulls it up. Okay. Copy. Paste. Okay, in fiscal year 2024, approximately 23,721 illegal crossings from Canada into the U.S. Here's the problem with that, okay? And here's why it is about the border and why it is about immigration. I guarantee you at least 10,000 of those are fentanyl dealers coming from the triad and doing business across country lines to deal with the Mexican cartels. I can just about guarantee about 10,000 of them. Okay? And that doesn't sound like a lot until you actually start getting into the hard numbers of how much they're actually transporting and how they're transporting it. 10,000 illegal migration processes from Canada into the U.S., either meeting cartel members here in the U.S. or going straight to Mexico, is a problem. But, and you are right to say that from Mexico we have a bigger problem from Mexico. However, I said this last night, and my point still stands. If you want to remove the problem, you have to cut off the supply line. And cutting off the supply line means removing the cartels from any sort of influence or having a supply line of this stuff to begin with, which means, and yes, it is coming from the Chinese triad, that China is just out and out refusing to do anything to stop. It means silencing their influence in North America as a whole, to include Canada. And it does mean entirely stopping this whole thing. Now, there is another element to this as well. I would say the numbers are about 500 from Canada. 500 potential terrorists in 2024. I know this sounds like a racist talking point. This is an estimation figure. All it takes is one to cause massive damage. These are very dangerous individuals, and their threats need to be taken seriously, meaning they need to be stopped as soon as they're discovered. Okay? Yes, more of them come from Mexico. But if Canada is our best friend, like everyone likes to pretend, why is that number even allowed? That number should be 0. Like, it's kind of like going to a rich man's ball back in the good old times. Back during the Victorian era. You bring your wife to a ball, to a masquerade ball. Well, your best friend should know better than to ask the lady to a dance, and then you get home and they're snogging in the back room. If you catch my drift, you know, it's the same concept with this migration problem. I did decide to do a little bit more in depth on Canada as well. There is an additional tariff when dealing with Canada that is not being discussed. And that is the tariff trade between their own regions, their own territories. I did not know about this. My chatter last night, again, really great dude, brought it to my attention that there are tariffs between the territories of Canada. So obviously, the tariff game is nothing new to Canada. And apparently, the territories can secede from Canada. Apparently, at any time, they just have to get the votes in their region. So what that tells me is that everyone's kind of overlooking the fact that we could get the counties from Canada that we want just because they decide to, secede from Canada and either make their own country or, maybe have US and maybe have United States backing, or they decide they want to join a part of the United States. Maybe they want to join the states that already exist. I did not know that these were options. Now, securing the votes here, that is a problem, okay? There is a problem with that, and that is securing the votes to do so here in the U.S., okay? You have the percentage votes that you need to meet in the territory that wants to become a part of this U.S., but then the United States itself has to vote on it. I actually didn't mention this stuff last night because it was like midnight, and I probably won't be doing too many more midnight streams because I don't live alone. And I don't have an office to do these streams in. And it's very rude to the other people that live in this house. So I won't be doing midnights again. And by the way, 4 hours of sleep this morning. We're going to be fixing that today too. We got a new bed. I can sleep. Yay! So yeah, just a little bit of cursory research will show you that the tariffs that are being put on the U.S. by Canada will not have as much of an effect on the United States as everyone thinks it will. Same thing from Mexico. All it took was a little bit of cursory, questions to even an artificial intelligence engine was able to come up with the answers here. I thought this was like a real thing, and so I clicked on it. Although I do find it very interesting that that's the thing that they decide to bring up. But yeah, no. So 33 terawatts of electricity from Canada in 2023. Here's the thing about that. Those are amateur numbers for our electricity consumption across the country. We have our own nuclear power plants. We have our own uranium supply that has nothing to do with Canada or Russia. We have our own fuel. And while I do appreciate people trying to use that as a reason to try to talk the U.S. government down from something, it's really not how you do it. How you do it is you stop the 20-something thousand illegal migrants from Canada from entering the U.S. That's what you do. Secure the border. Give Trump what he wants. It's a simple ask. There's 27,000 of them, roughly. Just put a stop to it. Or at least make a friggin' effort. Okay? And the reason, by the way, I did have my chatter yesterday repeatedly say that the Canadian government sucks. Actually, the Canadian government does suck because you don't have an electoral college. Okay? That's true. But what really sucks about the Canadian government right now is that they're a part of the WEF game of trying to destroy the United States by leaving their border open and shoving a bunch of illegal migrants into the U.S. Okay? Um, they do this to try to destroy the economy because the WEF is no friend of the United States. It never has been. It does not like the United States Constitution. It hates the fact that we have the right to bear arms. They've even come out and claimed as much. And they really, really fucking hate the fact that Donald Trump is the president of the United States right now. They can't fucking stand it. And you know what? Here's the thing to note. If they're angry, you are doing something right. They can be as angry as they want to be. Doesn't matter. And it's high time people. It's high time people start realizing that the United States. Look, the United States, we really don't need any other country. We really don't. We do business with other countries. In fact, we were actually better off before we started doing these kind of trade agreements back prior to 1912. We were at like our peak, and then we started to do these kind of trade agreements and international trade things on a larger scale, and then the Great Depression hit. That should tell you right there exactly what the problem is. We do better when we are left alone to our own devices here in the United States. Problem is no one wants to leave us the fuck alone. Moving forward, though, from that point, um, there really is no. The consequences to the United States civilian populace will be minimal at best. Okay? Um, Simply put, we make more chickens here in the country all year. I could go up to Tractor Supply right now and get more than a couple little baby chicks, and most of our feed, especially here in the state of Maine, is grown locally. We actually have a company here in Maine that does our animal feed. We don't import from Canada. We actually export to Canada. It's like the one thing we export to Canada is animal feed. So, and I'm not going to sit here and say that our state is going to stop sending you guys animal feed. It's just not going to happen. Maine's governor is a lefty. She'd probably, if she was given the opportunity, would like to sleep with Justin Trudeau. There's a reason I call her Janet Pills. Just outright gonna call it the way that it is. Um, you know, yeah, that's another thing. Our natural gas, or LNG as it's called, light natural gas, um, we make that here. Canada makes up less than 10% of total U.S. natural gas consumption. He's not wrong about this, by the way. Stock Talk does a lot of research before he makes stuff on Twitter or X. Sorry, Elon. At some point, I will get it right. Um, Unlike me, where I go in and basically dog on people just for the sake of doing it. Stock Talk is actually a golden verified channel. They do financial stuff, and they do their research. I don't. I insist upon causing chaos and mayhem for the sake of chaos and mayhem, effectively. Well, there is a greater overarching goal. It's just not one that's visible to most people. And when people realize that what I'm actually ensuing for is individualized nations cooperating to world peace without an overarching world government, um, when people realize that that's really what I am the person trying to mold the minds of people for, um, then things start to get a little funny because then I get labeled things that I'm not. you know, all these people tried to bring up the butts. The butts are nothing. Sacrificing 1.5, actually 2.7% of the GDP because we don't want to export to Canada and Mexico anymore is entirely on the table. Entirely on the table. Um, I hate to say it. I have friends in Canada. I have at least a viewer that I know of that lives in Canada, and it sucks to suck. But after looking at the data, they can either start becoming good faith actors or GTFO. And this again does not apply to the normal citizens. I'm not talking about the cartel members. I'm talking about the normal people that live in Canada or Mexico. I'm not talking about the triad, not talking about the cartels. This really sucks for their people that this is happening. But I'm going to address the Canadian people directly and anyone who will listen to it. Like, you need to read up on what you're voting for. And America. Oh God. You know what? Let's just say Central and North America, and just kind of put it like in a big category. You need to read up on what you're actually voting for. Don't just take it at face value. You need to sit down with a phone. We have artificial intelligence that will simplify these points. Grok does it all day, every day. ChatGPT does the same thing, and will explain to you the policies that you are voting for in a way that you can understand. You don't even need them to do that. I paid $45 for this phone, and I pay approximately $35 each month to maintain it, courtesy of Straight Talk. I could get on Google's voice search and look up these statistics and these bills and these laws, and it would take me a matter of minutes before I went in to vote. Like 5 minutes before you vote, grab your phone, okay? Look up what each of these things claims to do. Double check it with a secondary source, and make a decision based on what's best for you and your family. And stop voting down party lines. Oh my God! Stop. Another thing. Stop voting for personality. Okay. I don't care if you like AOC. She's terrible at her job. Vote her out. Get another Democrat in who's going to do the job. Right. I don't care if you like. Give me a second here. I don't care if you like Susan Collins. Vote her out. There are a million other fish in the sea that are probably willing to do the job and could do it better. Angus King to strike at the independents, and Bernie Sanders, same thing. Stop voting for them because of you liking them as a person. You are voting when you vote. And this is like addressing the whole planet as far as anyone who has any sort of voting capabilities. When you vote, you are not voting for who's going to be sleeping in the bed next to you. You are voting you are voting for the policies for the next 4 to 10 years that will directly influence and affect your lifestyle. Stop voting based off of how good they look. It makes you look dumb. Okay? I did this, alright. Fairness, I did this during the first Trump presidency, okay? I voted because it was Donald Trump, and my mind had nostalgia goggles from Home Alone, the New York City Home Alone movie, okay? In my eyes, I saw the Donald Trump from that movie. And then I read up on his policies, liked what he was doing, and it just affirmed my vote, right? I got lucky. But ever since then, and a coworker from Walmart pointed this out to me. Do not ever vote for someone based on their personality. Period. Never do that. um, like, and another thing, to the people in the U.S. saying stuff like, no more Canadian bacon at breakfast. Okay, gonna kind of humiliate my Canadian viewers here a little bit, but what's Canadian bacon? Circle ham? circle cut ham. But that's kind of just like that's been like an old joke between the United States and Canada for years, right? Along with Vermont or Maine making the better maple syrup, New York Bruins having the being the better hockey team. You know, the list goes on, right? Like Americans just kind of stomping on Canadians because it's funny. It used to be just funny to do, right? We don't really need that right now. Okay, I get it. We've done it for so long. It's just kind of been a funny thing to do. But this is not fun and games time. This is serious time. If you're going to talk about political political issues between two countries, you need to sometimes put the jokes aside. And the jokes about things, you know, the jokes about things in Canada being worse than the United States, put those aside for a minute. That was funny and clever, like in the 90s and early 2000s, right? But we've kind of progressed societally as a whole to, where it's not really that much of a problem. But it needs to not be a thing. My biggest problem. Okay. Here's my biggest problem with the tariffs from Donald Trump. And I'm not a sports fan, so this is going to surprise a lot of people. I don't like watching sports. I'd rather go play them. um, the reality is that this is going to have negative effects beyond just the tariffs. There is going to be societal distrust amongst a limited societal distrust between the two nations culturally. Number one, and I have to say limited. 25% tariff sounds like a lot. And in theory, it is. It's 25 cents added to every dollar, right? There is, however, a problem with the United States doing tariffs on its neighbors, and it is a smaller issue, albeit, but it's still an issue. How is this going to negatively affect sports between the three countries? I know that Mexico and the U.S. don't really do sports together, except for like the Olympics, right? But we do hockey with Canada sometimes. I'm not a big hockey fan. I would never be able to play hockey. I've tried ice skating once, and I'm pretty sure I screwed up both of my ankles trying it, right? But at the end of the day, that is something that people do enjoy. Um, and I think that as two different societies or cultures, we need to address the elephant in the room. Um, the biggest elephant in the room being that we can't let it remove the good things that we do have that can't be affected by it, right? Like, we should not, to a degree, we should not let, as an example, tariffs between Canada and Maine, Canada and the United States affect our ability to play hockey. 100% no. That we should still be allowed to play hockey with each other. That's like, you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of two groups of parents and their kids, right? The kids want to go out and play soccer or football together or just tag. But because some stupid beef happens between like the two moms or whatever, then all of a sudden the kids can't play tag together? The hell is that logic? That's dumb. The kids have been good friends for years. And you're going to sit there and have an issue because you're just not getting along with, the other parent for some reason? Dude, playdates aren't about the parents. They're about the kids interacting and getting some social skill development between them and other kids. And I feel like the tariff situation needs to be treated the same way. We need to not let the fight between the two moms the Canadian government and the United States government cause a rift between the two people of the two nations. I don't think that that's appropriate. I don't. So when I see stuff like this about no more Canadian bacon for breakfast, we need American bacon, I like both types of bacon, so F you. That's what I say to that. But yes, I will sit here and make fun of Canadian bacon because it's basically fried rounds of ham. As kind of an old school joke. But I think that's going to wrap on that particular issue this morning. I'm not going to drag it out like I did last night. Anyone who sees this, if you like the content, hit the like and subscribe button. And just remember, never trust your government. They're always bought and paid for, whether they want to admit to it or not. And if they tell you they're not, they're most likely lying to you. So remember to live that way. Remember to keep your stick on the ice. And remember to have a good day.